In 1970, a brand new car cost $3,500. A gallon of gas was 36 cents, and the median house sold for $23,400. Today, that same car costs $47,000. Gas is $3.50, and the average house? Over $420,000. This is what 55 years of inflation looks like, and most people have no idea how much it has cost them. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making any financial decisions. Inflation is the rate at which prices rise over time. When inflation is high, your money buys less. The U.S. government tracks this with the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. It measures the average price of a basket of everyday goods. When the CPI rises, your purchasing power falls. Since 1970, the U.S. dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. Let's visualize this. If you held $100 in cash in 1970, by 2026, it would only have the purchasing power of about $14. Every year, inflation quietly chips away at the value of your savings. The 1970s were especially brutal. Inflation hit 13% in 1979. Then the 2020s delivered another shock. COVID-era inflation peaked at 9.1% in June 2022, the highest in 40 years. Let's look at everyday items. In 1970, a loaf of bread cost 25 cents. Today it costs $3.50. A movie ticket went from $1.55 to $15. A cup of coffee was a nickel. Now it's $5 at most cafes. Even a first-class stamp went from 6 cents to 73 cents. These are not luxuries. These are everyday items, and they have increased between 10 and 100 times in price. But nothing shows inflation like housing. The median U.S. home price in 1970 was $23,400. By 2000, it reached $119,600. By 2024, it surpassed $420,000, an 18 times increase. Wages did not keep up. The average American worker in 1970 earned about $6,500 per year. Today, the median is around $59,000, only a 9 times increase. Housing became twice as expensive relative to income. Here is the most striking data point. The federal minimum wage was $1.45 in 1970. Adjusted for inflation, that should be over $11 today. But Congress has kept the minimum wage at $7.25 since 2009, the longest freeze in U.S. history. In real terms, minimum wage workers earn less today than they did in the 1970s. Not all decades were equal. The 1970s averaged 7.1% annual inflation, driven by 2 oil crises. The 1980s saw inflation fall to 5.6% after aggressive rate hikes. The 1990s and 2000s were calm at 2 to 3%. The 2010s were the most stable decade in modern history at just 1.8%. Then the 2020s hit. COVID supply shocks and stimulus sent inflation to levels not seen since 1982. So how do you protect yourself? Cash savings lose to inflation every single year. A savings account at 0.5% interest loses ground when inflation runs at 3%. The S&P 500 has returned an average of 10.5% annually since 1926, well above the long-term inflation rate of 3.2%. $100 invested in the S&P 500 in 1970 would be worth over $14,000 today in real purchasing power, versus just $14 in cash. Follow WealthInFrames for more data-driven finance content. The numbers do not lie.